Hey everybody, it's William. Welcome back to ACC for another lap around Spa, this time in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3. We're going to be driving the 2015 car today, not the Evo. Figured we'd start with the 2015. We could do the Evo later on down the line. Just this is base content. I believe the other one is part of DLC, so there should be a lot of similarities between the cars too. But yeah, we're going to do the 2015 today. Go ahead and get you into the setup for the car. Make sure I load the right one there. Okay, so I started off with the safe setup that is given to you by ACC. Honestly, it really didn't feel that bad. For instance, I was hitting like 218s in it, the high 218s with it. I am not the greatest at driving in this game at all, but changing some things, working on it a little bit, I've been able to get this down into the low 217s. Not sure if the Hotlap is going to show that. I'm not sure how my driving is going to be today, but a 217.3 is so far the best I've gotten out of this through testing. Your mileage may vary, but it did feel pretty decent to me. So we'll just go ahead and talk you through this. Nothing too crazy on the tires side of this with the tire pressures, toe, camber, anything like that. It felt like any more camber on the front. Once again, I was losing out. Ultimately, under braking is where I felt it the most. It wasn't necessarily turn-in or anything like that, but under braking. This car is actually, for as fast as it is in a straight line, it still has pretty good braking distances from what I've seen so far anyways. On the rear, there is some adjustability I found here. 3.8 on the, or negative 3.8 on the camber. Seems to work pretty darn well, but you can go all the way down to 3.5 and 4, and it pretty much, or 4 degrees, up to 4 degrees, and it keeps the balance pretty much the same. So if you're trying to do, some longer, turn this into a race setup or something like that, and you're experiencing some tire wear or something along those lines. There is adjustability, and you can go lower on the front as well. I think for a long time I was running at, I think the default it gave me was 3.8 or 3.9, and that honestly didn't feel that bad. So we'll go into the electronics. TC ABS, these are going to be pretty, you're going to need to adjust them to your preference and also the track conditions. For the Hotlap here, I'm going to be running it on 1 and 2. I do not have very delicate inputs whenever it comes to the pedals, so I could run this on 1, probably get some shorter braking distances if I really worked on it, but 2 for me feels very consistent. 1 on the traction control, and really the traction out of the corners for the most part feels pretty good on this car. 1 seems to work very nicely for me. ECU map on 1, that gives us the most power. If you guys are looking for the information on that, there's a forum post on the Assetto Corsa forums that has the ECU map and what they all mean for every single car in the game. Found that very recently. Extremely helpful, especially with how confusing some of these cars are. But for this car, 1, most power, that's what we're after. On to the suspension, we've softened the front anti-roll bar, decreased the brake bias by like 1.2% or something like that. So basically same deal. We're just trying to keep it from engaging the ABS. Stiffened up the front and the rear. The front was already pretty stiff. I think we just went 1 click stiffer, and 1 or 2 clicks stiffer on the rear. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, basically just it's the same deal with this this track pretty much every single time. Eau Rouge, really got to control the compression and Also, the front being a little bit stiffer, it seemed to help quite a bit in the change of directions in Sector 2, those high-speed corners in that sector. It seemed to help me out quite a bit. Anti-roll bar on the back up to 1, and this was the biggest change for me. I think on the safe setup it starts you off at 170 newton meters for the preload diff. Bump that down to 80. On 170 it was just absolutely horrid through the middle of slow speed corners. So took that down to 80. Seems to be a pretty good balance. Maybe could go even lower. That might be something you want to experiment with if you're struggling. Like I said, mostly noticeable in the slow speed corners, not so much in turn 1, but like the very start of Sector 2, kind of like through No Name and stuff like that. Like that's kind of where I was noticing the majority of the problems. I managed to fix with that. Dampers, I don't even know what they were to begin with. Spent a lot of time here looking on telemetry. This was an absolute wreck. Still kind of is, to be honest, but has a good balance, which is what we're after. Or at least it has a good balance, in my opinion, for what I prefer. Your mileage may vary with this setups. You know, they're very personal. Try and make something that's pretty neutral, but it just may not jive with your style. That's kind of the way these things go, unfortunately. But the biggest problem I found in the telemetry was the rear end specifically, just really unloading all of its weight almost instantaneously. So a lot of transfer of weight to the nose, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but some of the higher speed corners and stuff like that, it wound up with a lot of frustrating spins on corner entry, which can get pretty old pretty fast. So basically just tweak to try and get this thing to where it feels pretty balanced, doesn't want to kill you on turn in, and also has a decent balance through the middle and exit of the corner, not throwing its weight around too violently, hopefully. Onto the aero side of things, I think we lowered the nose and the rear. I know we lowered the rear. Also lowered the rear wing. We're still running it on 7. Seems like kind of a high setting for Spa, but it still has plenty of straight line speed. And that extra wing is just going to give you a little bit more performance through Sector 2 as well. So I figured why not. We're going to run the brake ducts on 2 and 2 for this hot lap. I'm going to need to adjust that if you're doing anything other than that, most likely, but yeah, that is basically the setup, guys. There's not much more to talk about in it, I don't think. If you have any questions or anything that you wind up changing and get some better results out of it or whatever, feel free to share it in the comments below. It may help me out, may help one of your fellow sim racers out there that are struggling with something that maybe you've managed to tweak it to your style and it works with theirs as well. So you never know. Let's try and make this beneficial to anybody that comes along. That's kind of what I'm going for here. Anyways, I am going to go ahead and leave you guys on a hot lap. After the hot lap, come back with you, talk through sector times, and also I want to go through a couple key parts of the track just slowly and kind of show a couple things I noticed specifically with this car to get the most out of it. So enjoy the lap, guys, and I'll see you after. Okay, guys, so I wound up trying a couple laps there as I'm more of a rhythm person. Takes me a couple laps to kind of get back into the gist of things to set something. I wanted to set something somewhat representative of what I know this car can do, and get you guys a decent lap of it. I kept messing up Eau Rouge and the run onto the back stretch specifically, just getting my turn-in points completely right. This car is it is very, very, very critical, especially in those two places. If you do not get your turn-in point right coming onto the back stretch, you're going to get massive understeer, and if you do not get your turn-in point right through Eau Rouge and you try and take it flat, you're going to wind up in one of the barriers or pointed backwards, going very, very fast. So just those two little things out of the way there. Yeah, you can see my laps here. Yep, so 17.8, and yeah, this was the lap I absolutely butchered. The exit of the corner that brings you onto this long straight all the way, you're flat out basically all the way to the last chicane. It cost me 2/10 there. I would have been happy with that lap other than that. It was a little sloppy, a little offline through Eau Rouge at just scrub speed, not anything major other than that. And you can see pretty damn near identical times right there. Second lap was just awful, completely. I don't know. I tried to get Eau Rouge right. I tried to compensate for what I had done. I did get it a little bit better, but not well enough. Sector 2 was miserable, and then I decided just to set up the final chicane to lead on to this lap. And then, yeah, you can see, if you were paying attention to the delta, I'm not actually sure. It should have been visible here on the gain loss on the dash. We gained like 1/10.5 out of Eau Rouge. That is just getting the line right. It was about 1/10 out of turn 1, but really the time, I think it was up to about 2/10 after Eau Rouge down the end of the straight. So, like I said, very line critical through there, and it wound up with a 217.454. Pretty good lap for me. This is knocking on the door of a 216. I know there's a lot of guys that can do 216s. I haven't done it in any car yet at all, so for me this feels very good, very fast, comfortable to drive for the most part. It does have a little bit more oversteer than I would typically prefer, but I'm thinking that's more down to pedal inputs and being able to manage the balance of the car as it starts to do that, because there's a lot of speed in having the car a little bit loose like that. If it's something that you do struggle with, if you just can't get to grips with the car rotating like that, just add a little bit more downforce, add a click of wing, maybe lower the rear ride height by 1 millimeter or 2. Those are quick, easy ways to get the rear end settled. Basically every time that should work. A track like this, you might have to compensate for something because of Eau Rouge, but I have tested the car on higher wing. So if that's if you are struggling with that aspect of it, just add a little bit of wing, and you know, you're not having fun while you're spinning. So, and it's really not worth that much time. In my opinion, it really is not worth that much time. It's just a little bit of straightaway speed you give up. A little bit of balance. I think that's mostly where you're gonna wind up getting your time if you do need to go that route. But like I said, you know, if you're spinning, you're not having fun. Even if you know, you wind up being a couple seconds off of this or whatever, just consistently being able to lap the car around the track, because that is what is the most fun in ACC, in my opinion, is just getting to drive these things around the track. They feel amazing whenever you're actually pushing on the limit. The car feels alive, and it's a great blast. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see the Huracan Evo, let me know. Let me know what kind of times you get out of the setup in the comments below, guys. Thinking about doing some special videos, a little bit of rain driving perhaps, If you have any opinions on that or want to see anything in the future, let me know. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.